After all my hours not only playing Cyberpunk 2077, but also reading through the lore of the tabletop RPGs, I have an ending that I, above all else, deem my favorite. There's just one problem though. This very same ending happens to be one of the most divisive in not only its final choice, but also the entire segment leading up to it. So what could it be? Well, assuming you clicked on this video, you already know. It is the King of Cups, the ending in which you side with Reed during Firestorm and chase a Blackwall-infested Songbird out into the depths of Dogtown, into a location that would come to shock the entire player base, the Cynosure facility. So today, I will be discussing this ending from the point in which you enter Cynosure, as everything before it isn't necessarily what's important to this video. I want to explore and highlight the lore, atmosphere, gameplay, decisions, consequences, and most importantly, the division of the community. If you happen to enjoy dives like this into the Cyberpunk series, 2077 and tabletop alike, make sure to subscribe and check out my other content. Without any further delay, let's enter the Cynosure facility. To understand the theme and tone of Cynosure and its fated ending, it's only right to start with its story, albeit a shortened timeline of events. In the year of 2013, the Arasaka Corporation had managed to get its hands on a powerful program, aptly named Soul Killer, a black program written by the Alt Cunningham capable of copying the personality and being of a person into an engram. That was now their flagship digital superweapon and virus. The natural rivalry between them and the Militech Corporation meant that Militech had to act, so they spurred into action with the creation of Project Cynosure. This was a great undertaking in AI research and development, located directly under the Pacifica District. It involved using neural adaptive technologies to capture presumed rogue AIs that lurked beneath the sanitized surface of the old net and to harness and utilize their capabilities. This included but wasn't limited to handheld weapons, robotic shells, interfaces, and in the net itself. A project that would bring the horrifying power of rogue AI to spread across not only cyberspace, but the real world. While it showed promising developments and breakthroughs being made to the benefit of Militech, it would also experience some disturbing tragedies. Not only were Militech employed netrunners experiencing a so-called high turnover rate while being forced to handle multiple rogue AI at once, it seemed that these incidents were bleeding over into the physical facility. This specific site utilized the Militech Cerberus, a large hexapod machine with near unbreakable armor and subsystems for AI models to help around and perform maintenance. These machines were easily the most advanced of their time, but kept specifically to off-world locations and Cynosure. Early on, these bodies were controlled by techies that had detailed know-how of not only the systems, but mechanics. But somewhere along the way, Militech had elected to replace these techies with the netrunners. Netrunners not nearly as capable of operating and maintaining the Cerberus, not to mention their simultaneous interactions with rogue AI, paired with the fact the head of department had no access to external analysis, believing the facility was not being properly monitored for incoming and outgoing data. A disaster was waiting to happen, and happen it did. During maintenance of one of the units, a violent incident occurred resulting in the death of on-site staff, an attack that came from a so-called malfunctioning Cerberus. But those who were wiser to the ongoing issues during Project Cynosure likely knew the truth. Rogue AI had managed to slip into their systems. It wasn't much longer until Militech suddenly halted all further work on Project Cynosure, completely abandoning the facility and pulling out all staff. While there's no official reasoning provided in their internal messages, one could assume the ongoing data crash and possible rogue AI infiltration were reason enough to not play with such a dangerous objective any further. Either way, Netwatch eventually sealed off the old net and made any entry of the IG protocol net illegal. Decades after the data crash and closure of the project, Netwatch, with the help of Alt Cunningham and allied AI, managed to erect the Black Wall, an AI masqueraded as a firewall with the sole purpose of sectioning off the usable net from the old, along with safeguarding it from the dangerous rogue AI that had been evolving since Bartmoss's death. To go beyond its boundaries would make you a fool, as any awaiting reward couldn't be measured to the painful and torturous death of being ripped apart by violent, hateful, and bloodthirsty rogue AI beyond anyone's understanding. The No Coincidences novel describes them as ravenous entities that would tear apart any form of data indiscriminately, including, of course, the lives of netrunners that dared to cross into the Black Wall. Even survival would mean a lifetime of psychological exhaustion and torture, with increased tendency toward melancholy, introvertedness, memory loss, and depressive thoughts bordering on the suicidal. And that's if you didn't bring a part of the old net back with you. Okay, so now you understand the condensed lore of Cynosure and Rogue AI. Let's get into the ending itself and what makes it so divisive and yet my favorite. When initially entering the Cynosure facility, many were shocked to find the stark change in setting and tone in comparison to the rest of the game. Even the darker missions just didn't compare to the ambience imbued in this location. The sound design, the lighting, its abandoned appearance, and ultimately what was lurking within, a hexapodal Cerberus unit inhabited by a ravenous rogue AI. I don't think there's any better way to highlight the average player's shock at this segment of the game other than showing my silent, very responsive first encounter of pure confusion at 2 in the morning. After hours of gameplay as a cybernetic Jesus and espionage with the NUSA, I'm suddenly stripped of my fun little dash hops, combat cyberware, weapons, and most importantly, I am suddenly alone. There's nothing you can do except run and hide, forced to play a cat and mouse game through a dark abandoned facility, all while cut off from Silverhand's occasional quips. It's a sudden 180 from how the rest of the game feels, ripping you completely out of your comfort zone. The weird thing is, this feeling shouldn't be foreign. Yes, the absence of a feeling only amplifies it once it appears, but this dystopian setting is scary. It's something you only get a glimpse of throughout the game, something you see other characters experiencing, but never really yourself, which somewhat exemplifies a point I've seen made a lot since 2077's release. V is too strong. There's no fear in your occasional gunfight, while in the TTRPGs, being calculated and making use of cover is the only thing keeping you alive. In 2077, V can hop around and eat bullets. It's essentially a power fantasy that is only ever turned on its head during intense boss fights that you're just not leveled up enough for. And now, of course, Cynosure. It's a glimpse at how we should feel just generally in this setting. Remember that Maelstrom leader, Dum Dum? Well, he wasn't just some random nobody. He was a scary bastard in the No Coincidences book. Yet in 2077, he can get dropped thanks to his overconfidence in home territory. Yeah, V is a badass, but even they shouldn't be exempt from being flatlined for making stupid decisions. So Cynosure gives us a glimpse of what Cyberpunk should actually feel like, especially when entering the net, which honestly you don't really do much in this game. But what makes it so controversial in its atmosphere and gameplay? Well, it's exactly that, the uncomfortable nature of the ending, the ripping you out of your comfort zone. When you load up a game like Outlast, you're psychologically preparing to play something scary, even if it doesn't prep you for everything. When you load up Cyberpunk 2077, many are expecting more of a power fantasy and find a comfort in that. But this change was so severe, I was seeing numerous posts of people literally just completely avoiding the ending, whether it be just getting off the game or rewinding their save. Many players legitimately couldn't play it. While many like myself find the change of pace refreshing and more attuned to the setting, many found it to be too different. It's weird just how vast human perspectives can be. For me, it's my favorite ending for all these reasons bound together. Yet for many, it's their most hated for these exact same reasons. But it's not just the ambience and Cerberus unit that makes this ending so divisive. It also comes down to your final decision once you finally reach Songbird in the Cynosure core. Her struggle to utilize the Black Wall left her being slowly devoured by the rogue AIs beyond, with only bits of her left to shine through. Bits that used everything they could to save V as they ventured deeper into the facility and experienced visions of Somi's past. We learn a lot about her in these moments. but it ultimately narrows down to one statement about her youth. She was a victim of circumstance. While her poor decisions would have been her downfall if it weren't for Solomon Reed blackmailing her into the FIA, she never wanted to be a corporate tool. She was as much a victim as any other talented individual who fell for the exploitation and manipulation of others, whether it be V, David Martinez, or Morgan Blackhand. Songbird was given no other choice. She was a pawn in the larger manipulations of the new United States to gain control over not only corporations, but the very citizens within its borders. Her actions, while morally ambiguous, are driven by survival in a hostile and exploitative environment, though this ultimately loops around to the age-old statements. I was just following orders, and I did it for survival. After spending years connected to the Black Wall as Meyer's most valued netrunner, the damage had finally caught up to her. Her plea to V helps reflect a desperate attempt to escape a life of exploitation. There's nothing left but a woman who wishes for freedom, but is unable to deliver it to herself, entirely classified as a mercy kill. But not everyone is so forgiving in the shoes of V. So me being a victim of the NUSA doesn't suddenly absolve her of questionable early life decisions and complicity in numerous atrocities. Early on, she elected to seek opportunities that would leverage her natural aptitude for netrunning, of course including illegal gigs like hacking Biotechnica or Militech, in which she'd reach a point that she pushed away all her personal relationships, leaving her all alone. At best, she was always a morally questionable person. When she was in the NUSA, she took part in assassinations, espionage, and illegal dives bordering and beyond the Black Wall to weaponize the dangerous military-grade AI that had evolved since the data crash, thereby not only endangering herself, but all of humanity. Then when she finally decided she had enough and needed to go to an extreme route to save her own life, she begins dragging anyone and everyone into Dogtown. And this is when she successfully connected to V thanks to Varelic, convincing them to help by revealing an alleged solution for their shortening lifespan, that of course later turned out to be a facade. I just feel the need to point out that for some reason, this is where people tend to draw the line against Somi. Not the corporate and government level sabotage, piles of bodies, or tampering with rogue AI. It's the fact that V gets lured into Dogtown over a lie, which I admit is pretty bad, dangling a carrot in front of someone who's on death's door, and any wasted time could mean they just die. But I am doubtful that's where I would draw a line. I mean, just going on Night City standards, this is quite literally what V is doing the entire storyline. Yes, V does some good, but also does some bad. I mean, keep in mind during half of the Nocturne choices, V can drag people like Rogue, Wayland, Santiago, Pan Am, and all the other Audicados through the raid. It's only in the Devil, Don't Fear the Reaper, the Tower, and Path of Least Resistance that you aren't sacrificing other people's lives or your own. Well, if you don't count all the Arasaka bodyguards that probably have children waiting on them at home. What I'm trying to say here is nearly everyone is morally questionable at best in dystopian settings like this. When judging by specific standards, even people like V don't necessarily deserve to be cured by the neural matrix if Songbird doesn't. Though I am going to say that all of this relies on the morals you grew up with and the philosophical principles you've come to adopt. Just because I think V and Songbird are somewhat on equal moral standings doesn't mean everyone else will equate them the same. But I do want to say that while you're making this decision, you aren't just weighing what Songbird deserves. You should also be weighing the consequences of her death and survival. You might think she doesn't deserve the mercy kill, and that V should turn her over for their chance at survival. But think about the consequences of her forced servitude. The NUSA will continue to not only have a weaponized gateway to the Black Wall, but now one that is completely obedient and essentially a puppet. If I were to bet on what happens to her, she would simply become the next step in their human-AI hybrid experiments that we learn about in the novel No Coincidences, trapping an AI to coexist in her head while completely rewriting who she is. If what the corporations predict is true, she would be the gateway to controlling the rogue AI beyond the Black Wall, thanks to the AI coexisting within her head. At least alleged. This is all theory crafting. So, what's scarier? Freeing Songbird of her torture, even if you think she deserves it, or handing her over in exchange for survival? But bearing witness to a future completely molded by the control of the NUSA and its weaponized rogue AI. I don't know about you, but I would take my chances just killing Songbird and finding another chance at survival. But of course, half of this doesn't matter if you just signed with Songbird in the first place and sent her off to the moon. Likely the canon decision anyways, thanks to Mr. Blue Eyes being there. So this entire video and its consequences only exist in this ending, and if you just hand her over to Reed directly in front of the shuttle, which is just the biggest fake out of all time, and you shouldn't do it, you sick freak. After all of this information and discussion of its divisive nature, I want to hear what you have to say. Did you find it difficult to play through the Cynosure facility? Did you appreciate the change of pace? And do you ultimately side in favor of Songbird or V and the NUSA? I'm not sure about you just yet, but Silverhand would definitely have some strong words to say about siding with Rosalind Myers. So make sure to let me know all your thoughts and feedback down below. As always, a huge thanks to all of the channel members up on screen. I'm seriously amazed and thankful for just how many of you have stuck around since the start of this channel. I'm genuinely so lucky to not only have amazing channel members, but viewers as well. I remember seeing so many of you commenting on my initial Silverhand's Memories Are Lying video. That really kickstarted my love for theories and lore on YouTube. I just can't believe it's been well over a year now, and I am eternally grateful for the memories I've made while creating content for you all. So, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great week, and I will see you later, Chooms.